you become so afraid of everything around you, thinking that you are controlling it instead of a sovereign God who's over it all.
Throughout the reading of your book, I was enamored with everything you just said, the black and whiteness of it all, where it was almost formulaic. Like if you do this formula, then you're going to be blessed for it. And you and I have a mutual friend, Don Vino, where, he wrote a lot about Gothardism, and I didn't even know anything about it, but he was the first base, so to speak, on me even knowing, oh, that's what the Duggars believe. Because I actually used to watch, it was when it was 14 Kids and Counting. I used to watch it when it first came
way
out.
back.
Wow. That's so crazy.
It was when you guys were in the first house and everything. And
that's so crazy.
When baby Josie was born, all that, I was kind of there for that. It's interesting. So, but I was curious about that. I'm like, well, what is up with this? Like, how come, what's up with the dresses? What's up with the rules and all these things? And there's a pattern with high control religions where they say, if you do this, then you will be blessed. And I was so enamored by your comparing it to the health and wealth gospel. I would actually love for you to unpack that a little bit more, where you would have said, and I call this spiritual gaslighting, where you will have a leader basically teach something and then deny they teach that thing. And it really messes with you. And I would love for you to unpack that a little bit more. How would you have been in a position to deny the health and wealth gospel while at the same time have followed those formulaic attitudes to bring about blessing?
I think that is so interesting because I just didn't realize the amount of teachings that Bill Gothard had that were just that. They were the health and wealth gospel, because as a young kid, I think because that was all I ever knew, I just heard that there were all these false teachers, all these guys that promise you everything, and you shouldn't follow them because, they're promising you like, you're going to get a big plane, so claim it. Like we wouldn't say we're going to claim anything, but we would deny that. And we watched like this Strange Fire. I remember watching this Strange Fire thing from Pastor John MacArthur. And I was like, wow, that's really crazy. What are those guys doing? At the same time, I was like the most devout Bill Gothard follower. Like I remember once I got into the teachings, Bill Gothard even said at one point, he said, when talking about suffering, he said, Job had 3 fears. And he went into like these fears. And this is why he, that his kids would die and he lost everything that he had, his wealth. And it's because he had these fears that all these terrible things happened to him. So the thing that I feared came upon me. That's what he would say. And it was like, well, what about Job being the most righteous man on the earth? You see this, that it was not what he didn't do or what he said, these words. I started to believe that if I had this fear of like, what if I fear I'm going to get cancer? What if I fear that I'm going to get married and my husband's going to die the same day? Like, if I fear that, it's going to come upon me. So I started to believe that. And I thought, if I just don't believe these things, I'm going to control what's going to happen in the future. So it was that weird, superstitious confusion that I lived in for so many years, because I thought it's what I think, what I say, what I do. Like I was just saying that the broom ball thing was crazy, because I would just say, okay, how do I feel today? Like, oh, do I feel like I should go? Do I feel like I've read my Bible long enough? Even if I read my Bible for an hour that morning, it didn't matter. I would still feel like maybe I'm supposed to stay home. Maybe I'm supposed to fast today. Okay, I have this feeling I'm supposed to fast. If I don't, I might be killed in a car accident, or maybe I'm going to get some crazy disease. So you started to live your life by that instead of by basing anything that Bill Gothard said off of the Word of God. So that's how I felt like with him, there was a certain understanding a lot of people had within that setting, saying, okay, he's almost like maybe he's a modern day prophet sent from God, which we would have totally rejected if any other church said that. But because it was Bill Gothard, I just kind of fell into that and believed it.
Was there a consequence? So there's something you write in your book about Bill Gothard's, I think it was the principles and his teachings. And one of the
Right.
things that you said was like a generational curse
Yes.
or yeah. So if something bad happened, and honestly, it reminds me a lot of what I used to believe as a new ager, whereas
Yeah.
you could bring that into your reality by
Yes.
thinking about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think it
It's so,
did fall into line with a lot of the new age perspective, which is crazy.
mhm.
Like
Yeah.
I think it all
What a
goes back
twist.
down to like examining everything. It doesn't matter who the teacher is. Like in your own church, you're able to examine and see, is this based on the Bible or is this just a man's opinion that I'm just saying, oh, because he's my pastor, because he's my teacher, I'm just going to take it in and not open my Bible. There's
Hmm.
that is where these things slip in. Or if you're raised
Hmm.
in something, like I just thought this guy is he's amazing. Everybody needs to know his teachings, but that he would teach, like he would say, life is a very delicate cause and effect sequence.
Hmm.
So you're just you're on this fine line. And so if you barely cross it, then your life could be a total disaster. So he has these 7 basic life principles that you need to follow to a T. And if at any point it breaks down, then you have to go back and say, well, why is my family a mess? Or why did my kids not turn out? Now, I think every parent could probably do that. And I think that can be a healthy thing to do if your kids are like crazy. But at the same time, you still see like there's the sovereignty of God is missing in this whole picture. There's not a reliance upon the Lord and on him, even in salvation, the reality of him being a sovereign God and sovereign over salvation as well, where I think a lot of those things were relying on the parents. So you see all these parents who, if their kids don't turn out, then they're like, they go back so carefully through these principles. Well, was it a curse from my
Yeah.
grandfather? Maybe he had a curse on him that we failed to see. And sadly, he went into adoption. He said for so many years about adoption, you need to be extra careful because you never know what curses these kids are bringing into your family.
Oh.
And so you
Mm.
need to be careful. He told a crazy story about a baby who was screaming and crying. This is an infant. And the baby was screaming, crying, looked at the parents with rage. And they were like, oh, we just didn't realize this kid had, this generational curse. And so they prayed and they said the baby ended up calming down. It's like, well, maybe the baby was just sick or maybe the baby was
Yeah.
gassy. Like you don't know what the cause
Yeah.
is. This is an
Yeah.
infant that just
Yeah.
came into your home and you're thinking, oh no, he's adopted. We're freaking out because we don't know what curses he's going to bring into our family. That's
Mm.
insane. And so that whole perspective, you become so afraid of everything around you, thinking that you are controlling it instead of a sovereign God who's over it all. And I think you want to be able to trust in that and you trust in a sovereign God. And we all struggle every day with like, okay, Lord, help me to trust you. If you bring difficulties or sufferings and trials, I want to love you more. And there are wrestlings within the believer. But in this setting, it was like, I'm going to turn to myself or I'm going to turn to these principles to solve it all instead of turning to
Mhm.
Jesus.